Welcome to the past, where you'll get information related to sports, video games, technology, music, and our all-time favorite ass of the week. What is up? What is going on? This is a new episode of The Past. We are still in season 2, and this is episode 187. I'm your host, BT. Hope everyone's doing well today on this beautiful, chill, relaxed Saturday. If you have or have not done so already, please enjoy the weather, because as I was telling someone earlier today, it's not a certainty if we're going to see weather like this again. And plus, it's going to, with how, at least here in Virginia, the weather has been kind of chaotic. So we are valuing this good weather while we have it. But I'm going to, as I always do, we'll do our sponsors and our wrap-ups at the end. But since we are on episode 187, and as we follow the tradition of our weekly shows, I will go ahead and do the number reference of the angel number 187. Angel number 187 meaning asks you to be consistent in all you do. You lose out in business when you lack consistency. Your clients will always know your working hours. If they keep on changing, regardless of the good service that you give, they will move on to your competitor. Have a keen eye and a listening ear. Your keen eye will make you see what interests your customer more, and your listening ear will take in their complaints, suggestions, and compliments. This will go a long way in improving your business venture for the better. The other message from angel number 187 is for you to be in touch with your spirituality. Pray, meditate, and keep on doing things that will maintain your relationship with your spiritual being. We should not be in touch only when we are facing challenges, but also when we are victorious and excelling. We give thanks for our achievements and seek guidance from our angel numbers for our hurdles. Angel number 187 symbolism, which is the combination of number 1, number 8, and number 7, is telling you that your uniqueness is your strength. Predictability is what will make your business acumen grow. That the guardian angels are ever present, but we have to establish a strong spiritual connection to make their presence strong and unshakable. So, 2 things. 1, I'm going to go ahead and be fair. We're not going to use the reference that most people know 187 in regards to. If you're not sure what I'm referring to, go back and listen to Snoop Dogg. You'll get it. It would have been ironic having him as artist spotlight, but since we are changing it up a little bit, and I'll get into that when we go into our music highlights this week. But this, all that information being said, this message is strong. And it's very close to me personally, only because I have been told and I've had to learn to address something that I really didn't want to face or really look at, but it's important. And that's your balance. Having that spiritual stability as well as just your meditation and your calm goes a long way. And I didn't realize the extent of that until just this week as a whole. I've done more relaxing and more calming things that I'm not going to say I wouldn't have done before, but I wouldn't have invested as much time towards compared to now. And sometimes in most cases, it's just something that teaches you how to address and how to deal with people and their actions. And that's just the simplest way to put it. So this message, like I said, it may or may not hit you personally, but it definitely touched and reached close in my heart and on my mind. I always make sure I share this each week because we have, there are those who have gone through different domestic related incidents or issues. If you are in a crisis or know someone who's in a crisis, please contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. or 7233, or you can go to www.thehotline.org. As I share each week, the businesses, A Taste of Heaven, RVA, you can check them out. Their information will be listed. Their link will be listed in the podcast, as well as Peachy Clean RVA, both local businesses here in Virginia that I do my best in supporting and letting folks know what they are doing to benefit our community. So we have a bit of an update in the playoff world, and it's interesting because one of my predictions are strangely coming to fruition, but I love how it's coming together. So I'm not really heavy in jumping out about it, but it's just good to see it happening. And the nicest way to put it is, the playoffs have changed. We're gonna break. So right now we're at the conference semifinals. And it has Houston and Utah going against each other, New Orleans, the Pelicans and Golden State going against each other, Toronto and Cleveland, and finally Philly and Boston. We're going to break down each series. I'm not going to give, because we've already done predictions, we kind of give forecasts as to who we're looking to see possibly make noise and have their respective impacts towards different teams. But we're just going to chew it up and kind of break down how I've looked at this series so far. So with the Houston and Utah series, Houston did win game 1, which wasn't a big issue. Game 2 was a shocker to some because Utah actually outplayed Houston, which is rare. And then game 3 went back to Utah, and Houston did pull that one off. Still, it's good because I know I predicted a sweep, but having Utah at least get a game in that series, kind of makes it for parity. Game 4 coming up is going to be one to keep your eye on, strictly because of Utah will kind of be, if Utah loses game 4, didn't mean to beat them table. If Utah loses game 4 and it goes back to Houston, not only will it turn into a win or go home situation, but they would also have to win 3 straight, which would be a very tall task, meaning they would have to win twice in Houston. So that's something to think about with that series if it goes that far, or if that scenario occurs. On the opposite end with the West, New Orleans and Golden State, games 1 and 2 were kind of a waste. Were kind of a wash. That's the nicest and simplest way to put it. The teams did play. They gave their best effort as far as the Pelicans. But it was Golden State's run. Game 3 was I guess you can call it a turn of the tide. You mainly had the Pelicans just, Rondo was Rondo. I would put it like that. Rondo did what we expect Rondo to do, which is get other players involved, make it clear that he's one of the best point guards in the NBA. I won't say the best because that's a stretch, but he's one of your top point guards when it comes to looking at point guards in the NBA. It just kind of almost comes as a back off, like a spinoff of. You really don't want to look at it this way, but it's literally how basketball is which fill in the blank, which Anthony Davis are we going to see, which Rajon, in this case it was which Rajon Rondo we were going to see. Like I said, he only had 4 points. We don't really look for him to do scoring. He was 2 of 11 from the field. He had 10 rebounds and he had 21 assists. So scoring has never been his strong suit. If anyone knows or truly gets the Rondo trend, that's never been something that you would look for Rondo to do. But he mainly did his role as far as being a point guard in reference to distributing the ball. So I give credit where it's due, and I mean I'm not gonna knock him ever on what he has going on in his routine, but I just wanted to be clear that Rondo is going to be like the X factor of this series. Davis played a solid game. Of course, he, balled out as usual. He had 33 points and 18 rebounds, along with 3 assists. And, I mean, even with him maintaining his foul trouble, he did have 4 fouls in that game, but it was, important to that series. And looking at Golden State's box score from game 3, it was kind of the who stepped up and who disappeared. I mean, you had your big four all score double digits. Draymond quietly almost got a triple-double because he was one assist shy. So that's a big impact towards that series as well. Moving to the East, I'm going to go ahead and jump on the elephant in the room because I always do that anyway. That's just who I am and how I do things. No one expected Cleveland to win games 1 and 2. No one expected Toronto to lose lose both of their home games. I know it's kind of me saying the same thing in two different ways, but I'm saying it that way for a reason because Toronto, I've talked about this on the show before. Toronto is the team that you really have to always have that question and concern of, are they going to show up playoff time? And we're seeing so far that the answer is no. Now, this is going to generate to a bigger question, which is for games 3 and 4, how will Toronto bounce back? Will they compete? Will they make this a series? Or are they just throwing the towel? Most cases, they're very well known for throwing in the towel just because it's the Raptors. And the Raptors they play subpar when they should bring their best game. And it shows, and this game is no exception to that being the proof. Finally, the Celtics and the 76ers series is Boston's pretty much to win. I mean, Boston could pretty much not play their key stars and still have a good chance of winning the series. There was a very petty post that was shared of Ben Simmons scoring 1 point in Game 2. If they want to win a game in this series, Ben Simmons has to show up. There's no other way to put that. We're as everyone always says, and you always hear, you're constantly hearing about trust the process. Well, the process is here. We're in. You put the pieces in place to set up for a playoff team to possibly make a run. And there were people who have said that they see the 76ers being in the finals, which is a stretch, especially if they can't beat Boston. I mean, Boston, Jaylen Brown did come back and play in Game 2, which was helpful. But I think what makes Boston that team to really keep an eye on is not even just a gritty play. It's mainly they have guys who are going to play their role to the best of their ability. Marcus Smart knows that he's not the greatest shooter, but Marcus Smart knows how to create and kick in regards to how he handles the team. Jaylen Brown is starting to come into his form, and I think was still not being acknowledged, and it's tough because of how, despite where seasons haven't carried players, you have pretty much the 3 possible players for Rookie of the Year all still in the playoffs between Donovan Mitchell, Ben Simmons, and Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum is going to really let it be known, yeah, y'all may not be talking about me now, and that's fine, but I'm here to play, and here's why. And, I mean, in most cases, it's kind of evident and obvious that the resume speaks for itself. So Boston has their 2-0 lead. They did their job. They won both games at home. Now it's gonna come down to going back to Philly. Will Philly flip the switch and realize, like, hey, we don't want to go down 3-0 and possibly win a game on our own home court, but then have to go back to Boston and win twice? Because that's always what you want to look at from an NBA perspective. No one realizes, and this is why I think Cleveland doesn't get enough credit for it. Cleveland won 2 games in Toronto. Winning 2 games on the road to start a series says a lot. And you're seeing why that's important in regards to that series. Like I said, I'm not really doing any predictions because the predictions kind of are going to be what they are for those matchups. So I always like to do this series or do this story because it gets more and more enjoyable the more that they present these. I think the Game of Zones always comes out every Thursday. And this week's Game of Zones, as I mentioned each week, if you have not heard about it or know about it, our Game of Zones is basically Bleacher Report mimicking the TV show Game of Thrones. But instead of it being in the TV show's reference, they use it from the basketball perspective with the NBA. And it's almost the easiest way of getting an overview of what happened during the season, possibly during the playoffs. And it goes through a good amount of the playoff run, but you'll see a couple of episodes come out during the regular season. This week's episode, I mean, each one of them are funny to me anyway, but this week's episode was funny because to give the backstory, like if you watch the video, watching the video will tell its own story, but I'm going to give the backstory to kind of give everyone an understanding. If anyone recalls, Chris Paul was traded or decided, well, he was traded from the Clippers to go to Houston. So he's in Houston, he's playing basketball for Houston. Fine, all well and good, no problem. Well, that point was going to come when the Clippers and the Rockets were going to meet, and it would be the first time Chris Paul has played in the Staples Center. Well, the game went on, they played, there was a lot of mouthing, a lot of back and forth, and long story short, the Chris Paul knew a path on how to get to the other team's locker room through what was known as a tunnel within the Staples Center. I guess is a good way to paraphrase it. And because of how extreme it got, it turned into like a physical altercation between players from the Clippers as well as players from the Rockets. And it was so bad because I always think about this story, and I always share this story looking at it now, because it was so rough and so interesting to the point where when TNT Overtime talked about it, or like, you know, when they do the Inside the NBA after the game, Shaquille O'Neal and Charles Barkley made so much fun of the story because Rose Ogumike, I'm gonna mispronounce her name, but she was doing kind of giving a briefing of what happened after the game. And all you can hear is Shaq and Charles just cracking up laughing. And Kenny Smith was like, look, I'm sorry. They're not laughing at you. They're laughing at the incident because of the fact that they used the term police presence was needed for this altercation between these players. And I mean, you think these are NBA players, not like little kids. These are like grown men. And police presence was presented. So it was like they made a huge mockery of that. And I enjoyed it. I ain't gonna lie. But that kind of gives you the preface of the story. So if you have a chance and have an opportunity, you'll want to check out Game of Zones. And if you have not done so already, I would personally recommend to go back and watch the series from the start, as far as the like season 1, and then catch up to now, because it's not like they're long. Like I said, but like I mentioned before, they're not lengthy episodes. They're very short, quick snippets, but it gives you that way of knowing what's going on in the NBA without having to be a quote-unquote NBA fan. So we're sticking to basketball a little bit. One of Duke's recruits, who was supposed to be in the 2019 class, has decided to reclassify. And I'm going to talk about this again because I know I mentioned it before with Marvin Bagley from last year and Jonte Porter, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But Duke men's basketball recruit Joey Baker reclassified to 2018. The nation's top 2018 recruiting class just got even bigger. According to 24/7 Sports, highly touted Duke commit Joey Baker has announced that he will reclassify from 2019 to 2018, joining R.J. Barrett, Zion Williamson, and Cameron Reddish, the nation's top 3 recruits in ESPN's class of 2018 rankings, as well as point guard Trey Jones. Me and Coach John Shire have a really good relationship, and we talk a good amount. We just felt like to take my game to the next level, this would be the best way to do that. I felt like it was the best choice. Baker, who was a 6'7" shooter from Fayetteville, North Carolina, was ranked 15th in the 2019 class. He could possibly replace some of the blue double shooting ability that was lost, while losing Grayson Allen and Gary Trent Jr. With a loaded upcoming class, Baker also noted that it's possible he'll redshirt next year, opting to use the opportunity to practice against top recruits in order to prepare himself for a better future. He did commit to Duke back in October of last year. He decided to go to Duke instead of NC State, Wake Forest, and North Carolina. So I mentioned this before, and I'll say it again. Reclassifying is a new thing or new wave as far as taking that opportunity to get the game at a quicker pace, in a sense, because if you have the grades and you have the ability to leave school a year early, which is rare because a lot of athletes who play basketball or play sports aren't really well educated. And this is not a bad thing to say it that way, but it's just an honest statement. There are some who are great at sports but aren't great in books. So they may not have that opportunity to leave school, a year early or anything of that nature. So in this case, him having that option to do so, he saw it as his shot or his chance of, hey, I'm going to go ahead and go for it. Thank you, Google, for doing what I didn't need. But you see that there's promise in what how he will look. And as it's even mentioned, he may not even play next year because, as some players do, they may go to a team, but they may opt to come in, but they'll possibly be redshirted. So he's willing to take that risk or take that option on the table as well. So we'll see how Duke looks if he even plays, and even if he does come in and actually is on the team. If there's no time for him to really get on the floor, then it'll just kind of be him getting that exposure to be at Duke, so that the following year he can get his minutes and fit into Duke's rotation. The Washington Redskins cheerleading squad made the news for a very odd instance. Now, this story had potential to be Ass of the Week, but it's not really an Ass of the Week story because it's a report. So the Washington Redskins cheerleader were required to pose topless for a 2013 photo shoot while spectators invited by the team looked on, which is just one incident in which the women recounted being uncomfortable with the team's expectations. Some of the cheerleaders were also required to attend a nightclub event as escorts for some of the team's male sponsors, according to the Times. The cheerleaders said there was no sex involved, but they felt the team was pimping us out. The incidents occurred on a week-long trip to Costa Rica, for which the cheerleaders were not paid. The first cause of concern was when Redskins officials collected the cheerleaders' passports upon arrival. It's not right to send cheerleaders out with strange men when some of the girls clearly don't want to go, one of the women told the paper. But unfortunately, I feel like it won't change until something terrible happens, like a girl is assaulted in some way or raped. I think teams will start paying attention to this only when it's too late. The Times also described an annual mandatory boat outing with sponsors. Some of the women characterized the 2000 trip as a wild gathering where men shot liquor into the cheerleaders' mouths with turkey bases. Below the deck, men handed out cash, prizes, and twerking contests. The Redskins responded to the accounts in a statement of the Times. The Redskins cheerleader program is one of the NFL's premier teams in participation, professionalism, and community service. Each Redskin cheerleader is contractually protected to ensure a safe and constructive environment. The work our cheerleaders do in our community, visiting our troops abroad, and supporting our team on the field is something the Redskins organization and our fans take pride in. The NFL has come under increased scrutiny for how it treats cheerleaders. Two women who were former Saints cheerleaders, Bailey Davis, and former Dolphins cheerleader, Kristen Ware, filed discrimination complaints against the league last month. Among the issues they cited were gender discrimination, sexual harassment, low pay, long and unpaid hours, and discriminatory social media oversight. The NFL responded to the lawsuits with a statement saying everyone who works in the NFL, including cheerleaders, has the right to work in a positive and respectful environment that is free from any and all forms of harassment and discrimination and fully complies with state and federal laws. The league said it would work with teams in sharing best practices to support cheerleading squads. Sarah Blackwell, the lawyer representing the former cheerleaders filing suit, said last week that the women would settle all claims for $1 in exchange for a 4-hour good faith meeting with Commissioner Roger Goodell and lawyers for the league. In a letter to an attorney for the NFL, they asked for a response from the league by Friday. We can't change, Blackwell said. We want the opportunity for change. We want change. We want the opportunity for change. Story has a lot of information. I know that's kind of like my redundant statement, but it's in this case, it's no exception. There's a lot going on with this because it's not even on the basis of a team crying wolf or saying something happened, but this is you're part of a team and your purpose of being at the event is to, make everything go well and be enjoyable. But then there's that line of what happened versus what went down. Like what was alleged to have happened versus what actually happened. And it's tough because unless you have people who participated who can be placed under oath to confirm or prove this, it makes it a tough case. But on the opposite end, it's beneficial to bring light to this because we don't know, or there's no certainty of what other teams may or may not be involved in doing similar situations as such. My input about this is it's not, if this is occurring, it's not really a good reputation for the league. Even worse, it's not a good reputation for the team specifically. To add to that, the NFL, if they're smart, should not treat this lightly, because there could be other teams that are going through similar instances, and no one is willing to come out and address it, because as long as it's not addressed, it's not known, and that's not right. So this is a story, if it, as it gets more information and more attention, if it, rotates into circulation and there's an update, definitely want to break that story and bring it, back into the podcast as an update. Twitter and WNBA has hit it off again. So this is a blend. This is what I always like to call that blend of, we're still doing sports, but we're blending the stuff into this, and we'll get into that as to why I'm using that reference. So for the second year in a row, Twitter will live stream WNBA games. The coverage starts on May 20th with a 4-game blitz starting at 1 p.m. and will follow with one streamed every Tuesday until the season finale on August the 19th. Renewing its WNBA coverage is the latest in Twitter's ravenous appetite for sports content. While it lost Thursday Night Football last year, the platform has plenty of programming lined up, from Major League Soccer to a World Cup live show to ESPN content, including SportsCenter Live. While the 20 total games broadcast on Twitter won't cover the entire season, each NBA team will appear in at least 2 of them. If you don't want to watch on the social site, you can still catch the action on ESPN2, NBA TV, WNBA League Pass, and the ESPN app. Guessing they're not doing YouTube Live, because I know that's something that on YouTube TV everyone's talking about that. I'm not sure, and I know this is a random segue, but YouTube TV was supposed to be like a big deal, and I've gotten notifications related to it, but I have yet to really give it, quote unquote, the proper attention. WNBA is doing their best to get exposure as best as possible. It is in a very tough spacing because it comes on right after the NBA season. Well, matter of fact, I take that back. It comes on mid NBA season, and then after the NBA season is over, you can have the NBA season in, the draft can come and go, the award show can come and go. You'll still have some games left over. Nearing when their season ends, you're kind of rolling right into football. So, I mean, there are games that are able to be watched. And I say all of that to just say, no one can see this or really think of it as such, but WNBA games, or women's basketball period, is very chippy. And I say it's chippy strictly because there is quite a bit of action activity that goes on in game that we really aren't able to see from the crowd. Like it's like you have to be at a game or have played basketball with women or seen women's basketball up close and personal to get what I say about that. As far as like scratching, elbows, like, in men's guys basketball, yeah, elbows are thrown. That's, the game, or pushes and things of that sort. But girls, it's way more action. If you watch a game, you'll understand like what I'm saying by that. And I'm not comparing the two in any massive way, but it's just something that I've observed. I've had that shared with me. I've noticed that. Random segue. But tying into this connection with Twitter is good because a lot of people are on Twitter, number one. And number two, Twitter is kind of become like that quick escape and that quick place of getting information and getting pieces as they're presented. So that should be fun, and that'll be a good experience for WNBA since they have that rapport with Twitter in place. Our last story, let me confirm because I know I'm always throwing stories back and forth. Our last sports story, but this is a blend of stuff because it tells what's going on, but I'm also gonna dive into a little bit of some information and updates that have occurred. So I don't recall if I've said much or made this story get attention, but I will give it its proper attention. LeVar Ball is working to generate a league to compete with college basketball, as well as possibly be a bridge or a gap, build a generation gap of the sports gap between athletes who come out of high school and the NBA. Since there is no high school straight to NBA option, even though players have found ways to do that, the JBA League, or the Junior Basketball Association League, is LeVar Ball's new venture. So, two things. One, the story that I'm sharing is there's a YouTuber who went to the practice. Now, most of the practice was not expected to be recording. There was no recording to be allowed. There were YouTubers who were part of Hoop Journey who were able to get recordings and be able to achieve that. And what makes it interesting, why Hoop Journey was allowed, is if you look at a lot of the older videos that Hoop Journey did, LeVar Ball would be in the intro where he would show the shout out and clap and smack, look at the camera and say to Hoop Journey. So that's where that allowance was put in place for them to do so. Let's see, LaMelo Ball wasn't there. So to talk about this article, even though there's no recording allowed at LeVar Ball's Junior Basketball Association tryouts, the YouTubers from Hoop Journey shared their footage while trying to make the cut in Dallas. LeVar Ball and his youngest son, who's supposed to be the face of the league, LaMelo Ball, weren't there, but it's still an interesting peek into the NBA the JBA, as it tries to find its first players. Per the league site, the JBL League is an alternative for young athletes who want to play basketball as a pro without going through the NCAA college system. The JBA says it will pay players that are 17 to 19 years old, and the team that wins the championship will win a new Mercedes, BMW, or Cadillac. So it's said in this story, and I'll go ahead and talk about it. You go back a couple of weeks ago, LeVar decided to pull LiAngelo and LaMelo out of the Lithuanian league. And a lot of people were surprised. A lot of people said, no, we kind of saw this coming. Fine, cool, whatever. The next option, and now this will kind of break away from this story, but it's going to come full circle. LiAngelo decides to, after he's left Lithuania, that he's going to put his name into the draft. The NBA decides to release their listing for the NBA Combine. Guess who didn't make the list? Gonna say this because I need to bring this to attention. There's not a surprise of that. Him not being chosen to participate. So LiAngelo, if he makes a team, it's going to be through free agency. I'm going to be brutally honest. Because he's coming into this with an agent. And what a lot of people feel and how it's kind of been looked at is he should have stayed or went through the process with UCLA, waited a year, come back next year and play. Even if it meant you were redshirted next year, you have that platform, and also it's your education. Like, I understand it's a business, but education, you can't go wrong. So then you have LiAngelo making that decision. LaMelo, based on his age, based on everything going on, LaMelo is stapled and placed, as it's mentioned in the story, as the face of the league. I don't see that as an issue, and I only say that because having him be the face of the league will generate the attention because people like to see LaMelo play basketball. We really didn't see much of LaMelo playing overseas, and that was primarily due to just the game and everything being the way it was. But there was also growing potential, even when it came down to him playing against Zion. The game between LaMelo and Zion drew massive attention. The court that they played at, literally, you had superstars, you had big names who were there. There were a lot of people who weren't even allowed to get in because literally the amount of people they had there looked like it was a fire hazard. So they had to play that safe role. But LaMelo being the face, potentially being the face of the league, brings spotlight and brings attention to the league and possibly can get it the exposure it needs. My number one thing that I'm thinking of with this, and this is a spinoff because it's something that has to be factored in, and I don't believe this is talked about in the article because I don't see it. If they are to play games, how will their games be shown outside of YouTube? First and foremost, we all know YouTube is a platform that can definitely get viewers and get attention because we're now with sports, and I'm even at my age, I still am guilty of watching a lot of hoops highlights of kids who are in high school, who are in middle school, who are playing basketball, who are developing their game. And that's just generating to, like, the highlights that are being shown for kids now are almost portfolios and resumes for kids to get recruited. And a lot of these guys who are at, like, say, the JBL League or JBA League are not, some of them may have videos, they may have highlights. Some of them may just not have a good opportunity based on trying to get to college. Or they may not want to go to college because they want to let me get this money. But the tough part about it, and what makes the challenge with JBA, which I'm going to say because I feel like it needs to be pointed out too, is the JBA basically annuls your opportunity or your option to go to college. Well, I'm not going to say go to college. You can go to college, you just won't be on a scholarship because you then violated as far as rules. You're getting money for a sport, or you're in an amateur based level, which kind of knows your opportunity to play play college basketball under a scholarship. Here's why I bring that up. If you go to JBA, you play a season or two, you don't have the greatest show out, it's not like you can say, you know what, I'm going to try to go to the G League and see if I can make an attempt. Because there are some players in the G League who are what they call two-way players, that they're in the G League, they're in the NBA. They're in the NBA, they're in the G League, back and forth. There are some players who are frozen in the G League. As we saw a few weeks back, there was a player he's actually from Richmond. He played basketball for 10 years in the G League, and he just got a call up. And not just a call up, he got an opportunity to sign a contract with the Lakers. So it's time, but it's all about the grind. So I'm just saying that to share that the JBA League could work, but the JBA League is going to be a challenge for kids if they're looking to get a scholarship still with a school, because you will null and void that option with going through this. Hoop Journey did present that they did run into trouble when they tried to try out again at Houston, because LeVar's brother had recognized them and they got kicked out due to their filming. So they mainly, like I said, the video is at the top of the page, is showing like them actually trying out for the league and kind of the exposure of how it all went. And they've kind of mentioned it's a possibility that LaMelo will be playing for the Los Angeles team. Now, they haven't given the teams names. Forgive my pettiness in what I'm about to say. I hope they do not go with names or go with an option or route that makes the teams look like they're default teams on NBA, on Double Dribble or something like that. So we are now at the spin or the segue known as stuff. There is stuff. I guess I can say that there is stuff, but there's not stuff. And the only reason I'm saying there is stuff, but there's not stuff is only because sports has been kind of, not sports. Stuff has been kind of relaxed. There was an event that, and I didn't do an article for this, but I found this story this week, and I feel like I'm gonna share this because I feel like it's a good thing that it's carried over into another platform, and I'll explain what I mean by this. Michelle Obama does an event. I believe this year was her 5th year doing it, where kids who are seniors in high school are looking to make what many people would consider the toughest decision of your life, because you're trying to find a college that's going to accept you for you and allow you to be great. Bottom line. So when that occurs, you're looking at colleges, you're looking at universities, you're looking at technical colleges, you're looking at junior college, wherever you can go that's going to, one, give you a scholarship, two, make school less stressful, not be a long commute for your parents. All of those things come into play. So they do a college, it's like decision day. I like the story because this year they partnered with Twitch, and Twitch live streamed the event on twitch.tv/Twitch. So they had the event on Twitch, and I believe there was one of the stations, more than likely it was on TV as well, but I'm not sure what channel showed it. But I valued it from the gaming perspective as well as from the future perspective, because they had a lot of guests who came on that would talk to the players, the guys who were sitting there, because you had Ninja, who we talked about on different occasions, sitting, and playing Cuphead. And while he was playing the game Cuphead, some of the guests who would sit, like Questlove, Nick Cannon, things of that sort, they would sit and they would watch either him or Ammunition play, and they would be involved in trying to figure out, well, what is this game and how does it work? And I like this, but it's a very weird concept. But I truly believe when it comes to gaming, any nostalgic feel that a person has towards, against, or whatever for a game, it's going to show up. And in this case, there's no exception to it. But I wanted to share that story. Like I said, I don't have like a article or a tab, but it was a move. It was a huge movement, or it was a moving moment to see that kids, and this was in Philadelphia, by the way, at Temple University, they are taking time to have kids know that they matter for their future. Many of you may or may not know this, and I'm sharing this as kind of like a layer of me. I didn't realize the importance or the extent of education until going through some of the things that I've gone through over the years. And this moment, looking back on it now, getting my associates, I don't regret it whatsoever. Getting my bachelor's, I don't regret it whatsoever. Like, those are things that can't be taken away from me. Student loans are hanging on, but that's another story. But I just want to share that as far as like how important education is and how important it is to like utilize your mind to its maximum potential, because your mind is what you have. It's kind of a redundant or evident phrase, but your mind is what you mainly got to work with. And if you lose that, you ain't got much left. So our first stuff story is in regards to, if you remember a while back, we did talk about the two black men who were arrested while sitting in the diner at, I'm sorry, I don't know why my tablet wants to be a derp. While they were sitting in the diner at Starbucks, and they didn't order anything. You know what? Here's what we about to do. You're not gonna get me today. They had the issue. Let me come back. Let's start over. Two black men were arrested for sitting in a Philadelphia Starbucks without ordering anything. They did get a settlement. They did have it settled where they were able to get $1 each and have a promise be made from officials to set up a $200,000 program for young entrepreneurs. The men and their lawyer told the Associated Press the settlement was an effort to make sure something positive came out of the incident. We thought long and hard about it, and we feel like this is the best way to see that change that we want to see. One of the men who was arrested, his name was Dante Robson. This is him speaking. It's not a right now thing that's good for right now, but I feel like we will see the true change over time. The arrest of Rashawn Nelson and Robinson on April the 12th touched off a furor around the U.S. over racial profiling. They were led away in handcuffs and accused of trespassing after the manager called police, saying the men refused to buy anything or leave. After spending hours in jail, they were released and no charges were filed. Their arrest record will be expunged as part of the deal. The men said they were waiting at the coffee shop in the city's well-to-do Rittenhouse Square neighborhood for a business meeting with a third man about a potential real estate opportunity. I am pleased to have resolved the potential claims against the city in this productive manner. This is the mayor, Jim Kenney, who's speaking. This was an incident that evoked a lot of pain in our city and put us under a national spotlight for unwanted reasons. They continue on. Philadelphia Police Commissioner Richard Ross, who's black, at first defended his officer's conduct, but days later issued a televised apology for the way the Starbucks call was handled. Within the uproar, Kevin Johnson, who's the CEO of Starbucks, did come to Philadelphia to personally apologize to the men. He also announced that the stores would be closing on the afternoon of May 29th to get training for unsuspicious bias. This is what you call karma as well as paying it forward. A lot of times we really don't like to pay or move things toward the right direction, but we know in doing so that there's a benefit of doing it. This is an example of that. The men could have used the money, went out and did something, who knows what, and, benefited from their own personal gain, but they wanted to look at it as a message and a way to send an inspiring thought to someone else to say, hey, if you want to do something, here's some money that can help with getting that started. Because I will say this now, and I will share this with people. This is on a personal level, because they were like, with them, they were looking at it from a real estate or just business starting in general. I'm gonna speak about this podcasting and just anything that you're wanting to do. This is my little tidbit or tip or trick to share with my listeners as I get my life together. If you have a passion or something that you want to do, yeah, we're going to go through the whole do it. Like that's the obvious. But if you're understanding how much you're going to be vested and involved in what you're about to do, complaining about the investing that goes towards your skill or your talent that you're about to pursue is not going to make it better. And I say that and I give that attention in that regard strictly because we fail to realize the importance of it now. But our brand is our brand. Obviously, that's something I always talk about. But if you're going to see what you're doing come to fruition, you're going to have to put some money into it. You're going to have to put some time into it. Sometimes your time is your money. You may not have to actually physically pay anything, but you have to put time into what you're working on to get the results and get the output that's properly needed. And sometimes we forget that. Like, I know for me, that has always been something that I was challenged with before, because I was like, oh, I don't really feel like doing this. I'm not really sure if I'm going to get into it or not. Past Podcast has been in its full fruition now for over a year. Give or take, we'll say a year. Before the past and when it was Brate Podcast, I was buying a microphone. I was, buying time. I was buying space to store episodes, buying a website. Like, you have to buy and do those things, because if you don't do it, you're not going to it's not going to gain the benefit of what you're doing and what you're working on to try and get that task or that product out there to others. And that's what it comes down to, and that's what these two men are trying to share. That's what these two African American men are trying to share with others is, hey, if you want to do a business, you should be able to do it. Here's some money to help you get started. because in some cases you have to get started on what you have and make what you get work and balance it from there. Speaking of business, since we've not heard much from them, but they are making their mark. Spotify did announce that they have 75 million subscribers in their first quarterly earnings reports. And I'll give props to that. Like, Spotify is that app. I'm not going to lie. If I was an Android user, I would probably use Spotify. Be totally honest. I love Apple Music. Don't get me wrong, but Spotify is where I see a lot of things. And I think what helps Spotify, before I read this article, Spotify is now starting to get into the podcast world, which I think is great because now you're expanding your platform. Like, your platform currently is, you have music, you can stream playlists, stream radio stations that are kind of like in a Pandora-like format. Great, cool, no problem. But getting like podcasts into that, and it's all integrated into one app, can't beat it. Spotify made its New York Stock Exchange debut last month, and today the streaming service announced its first earning report as a public company as part of its pre-filing paperwork. As part of the pre-filing paperwork, we already knew the company had amassed 170 million monthly users, but as of now, they do have 75 million paid subscribers, which is up from 71 million earlier in the year. For comparison, Apple recently hit the 40 million mark, though recent reports indicate Apple may catch Spotify by the end of the year. Despite a growing subscriber base, one that Spotify says could hit 96 million by year's end, the company is still spending more than it's taking in. Spotify's operating loss was down by 41 million. It went 41 million down from 87 million euros. Even as it continues to work on closing the gap, the challenge will likely get tougher. The music industry is so reliant on streaming now that when it comes to renew licensing deals, the stakes will likely be higher and pricier for both sides. Of course, a business model where the rights to the content aren't allowed by the company isn't exactly the most solid investment, so Spotify will need to prove it's worth the risk. And they go on to just talk about other information as far as like the new revamp for free users, which gives them more personalization to the ad-supported base. They wouldn't really go into terms of converting free listeners to paid, but they do look at things like possibly offering bundle offers with Hulu to kind of help, get customers into doing the paying option. And let's see, Instead, Spotify sees room for multiple services and grow in a growing market and doesn't expect any issues with Apple's streaming option cutting into subscriber base or making up a ton of ground. And I mentioned this earlier. The company also said it's continuing to add more podcasts and other spoken word content, padding its non-music catalog. Important factor, and it's important strictly because it's Apple. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. It's important because it's Spotify. Spotify is mainly its own platform and its own presentation. Apple is under a massive umbrella. Apple has this umbrella of music, podcasts, books, etc., etc. Spotify is strictly for streaming and strictly for music. And I mean, like they mentioned, doing offers with a company such as a Hulu, Netflix, giving deals like anyone who has T-Mobile has always known about, like T-Mobile Tuesdays, where there are different little promos or things that the company can give as an incentive to get subscribers. That's stuff that they're going to learn and work on, especially in marketing. And then also they're trying to keep up with their mark, especially with with them officially going live as far as joining the stock market. Our final stuff, in a sense, is the trailer. Another trailer has been released for Red Dead Redemption. I don't know about anybody else. October 26th cannot get here fast enough for a lot of the Rockstar supporters. Rockstar has hit a very turbulent stage. I'm gonna read the story a little bit, and then before I read the story, I'm gonna talk about this. Apple, why am I talking about Apple? Brian, be unbiased. Rockstar's baby right now has been GTA. GTA has gone through a transition. Anyone who plays or knows about GTA will attest and confirm that GTA's adjustment now is through role play. GTA RP is the most known and addressed form of playing Grand Theft Auto 5. Most people play the game and it's more of you have a character and you do just different things in servers and stuff like that. GTA still updates and gives you different little Easter eggs and different little fun things to add into their game. But those who truly are Rockstar fans loved Red Dead Redemption. Because Red Dead Redemption really didn't have as much online base in it. It was truly a story, but it was a good story that kept your attention. So they have the video. You're welcome to look at the video, and as the opportunity permits. And the article starts off another year, another trailer for Red Dead Redemption 2. Today, developer Rockstar showed off the latest footage of the upcoming open world Western, along with more details on the world and story. Here's how the developer describes it. America, 1899. The end of the Wild West era has begun as lawmen hunt down the last remaining outlaw gangs. Those who will not surrender or succumb are killed. After a robbery goes badly wrong in the western town of Blackwater, Arthur Morgan and the Van der Linde gang are forced to flee, with federal agents and the best bounty hunters in the nation massing on their heels. The gang must rob, steal, and fight their way across the rugged heartland of America in order to survive. As deepening internal divisions threaten to tear the gang apart, Arthur must make a choice between his own ideals and loyalty to the gang who raised him. This is the third proper look at the game so far. The sequel was announced with a trailer back in 2016, and Rockstar followed that up with a deeper look at the game's story last year. Despite the title, Red Dead Redemption 2 will actually serve as a prequel to the original game, and like its predecessor, will feature both a lengthy single campaign and online elements. It's been in the works for a long time, and barring any more delays, Red Dead Redemption will land on Xbox One and PlayStation 4 on October 26th. You see, they're staying away from PC as of right now. In the meantime, Xbox owners can play the original game through the console's backwards compatibility feature, which I believe I have a copy. I just haven't played mine in a while. But this is a game that I feel the true Red Dead Redemption community has been waiting for, and I'm kind of waiting for it. I didn't talk about this a few weeks back because it kind of ties into it, and this will be kind of an exposure or a layer of me as a person. God of War came out. God of War, a lot of people are saying and kind of tooting early as being game of the year. I would not even attempt to disagree with that because I see it. It's the game that everyone has on their mind, on their heart and their soul, and they're ready for it to see it do great things. Games like those are great games to play, but everyone has their preference of gaming. I've come to grips with this, and I had a conversation with someone about this, and it's just who I am. I like story modes. I like seeing stories be told of characters and who's who and why did it happen. But a lot of times I'm usually the person that's like, all right, let me open the game, get online, get into some action. I'll learn the story as I get along because the story kind of sometimes can tell itself, which is understandable, but in most cases I kind of got an idea of the story. But the story type games I'll play for a while, and I won't say I get bored, but I'm like, all right, I need some true action. And playing against the computer, you'll get action, but it's in stints or in spurts. So this game is a good game. I will probably see, as with most games, I usually watch it streamed first, and that kind of gives me an idea of whether it's I'm going to buy it. I may stream it myself. I mean, I may download it and get it, or buy it and take it back and see if somebody else has it and play it. But it's not like a huge press for me to play. But I feel like it's going to be a good game. Even though it's coming out in October, it's going to be tough for it to be put in Game of the Year, because I feel like God of War right now has that solidified. Artist Spotlight this week. Well, I'm sorry, not Artist Spotlight. Music Week this week was a little rough for me personally, and I'll explain why. Most cases, I can usually go into Apple Music, go through new releases, see what albums have released this week, and kind of give a spin and listen and check out, like, okay, let me see what this album is, see who did this, see who did that. This week, really tried to do that, didn't find much of anything. And it happens. I get it. Ray Shrumman, they did a triple disc album. I got through about 2 or 3 songs. My head hurt. Me personally. Now, mind you, I have a balanced / imbalanced ear. And I've mentioned this to a lot of my friends, and they understand it. And I'll share this with you all as podcast listeners. I'm a music snob. I like music. I don't really have a turn away about a lot of songs or a lot of artists, because there are a lot of artists I'm going to listen to and play because it's just me. But then there's some music that if it's not maintaining or keeping my attention, I'm running. Like I mentioned last week, Janelle Monáe's album, love it. If you've not listened to Janelle Monáe's album, please listen to it. J. Cole's album, I got a lot of flack from people who dislike, may not be fans of his, and that's all preference. But it was a good album for me. This week, Christina Aguilera did a single, and I made a lot of mockery, and I'll talk about this now because I confirmed it after listening to it. There are a lot of artists who you would never expect to add what I like to call the skirt term, which if you listen to Migos, you know what the skirt is. And it was in J. Cole's album, and one of his songs, in the Kevin Hart song. And I was like, oh, no, this isn't going to work. But I got over it. It was still a good song. And then I even watched the video. Christina Aguilera, it wasn't her specifically, but I think a feature in the song did a skirt. And I was like, oh, no, she's part of the skirt crew. So I made mockery of that. Random 2% I know. Trying to think, there was a song. Belly. The artist Belly has an album, Dove. I tried to look for it. It was not out on my device at the time. I believe, and it's not on this list, Christina Aguilera does have an album coming out, but the album was not available for me to listen to on yesterday. Because I know a lot of times, typically, album releases are done on Friday. But for some reason, it was a struggle yesterday. So I will do my best as a podcaster and as an accountable show host to make sure that you all get some musical know-how and some musical information from me related to if there was any music that I missed last week, to kind of give an overall view from that. I have, like I said, in the show notes, I have a link. It's, if you go to May 4th, it'll show the artists that had albums that I didn't even see or was not aware of. But I did give that its proper attention and check it out. Well, I will make it my best. I will make my best effort to check that out for you all as listeners, because that's just the way it should be. So this week we're kind of gonna give a mixture of both, because usually I'm always able to mix both in for our ads of the week and our pass of the week. Our pass of the week is going to be a coincidental because it's going to be some sports, but this is that line, as I've mentioned through the show a little bit, where it's going to be some sports and it's going to be some stuff. Now, I have an article that kind of talks about the NBA 2K League debut. I'm going to read a little bit of this, and then I'm going to give my assessment of what I've seen and how this will look moving forward. On a night On the night LeBron James began the second round of the playoffs, a computerized Cavalier tormented teams the way the real Cleveland Star does. The NBA is betting there are enough fans for both versions. The league is staging the opening tournament this week of its NBA 2K League, hoping to cash in on the combination of the global popularity of basketball and the burgeoning business of esports. Television ratings have soared in recent years to watch James, the rise of the Warriors, and the thrilling era of high-flying dunkers and long-range snipers. But will fans really race to their computers to watch other people sitting around playing video games? I think the esports universe is answering that question for us. People are completely 100% engaged with watching others play games. I think Twitch is a walking proof of that and all the success these other games have had. The esports space has doubled in size the last 3 years, and every prediction is it's going to double in size the next 3 years. So I think we're almost beyond that question a little bit. And this was coming from the 2K League managing director Brendan Donahue. So do NBA Commissioner Adam Silver and many of his owners agree with this? They said they hope to get 8 to 12 teams for its inaugural season, and instead got 17, with enough interest remaining that he expects rapid expansion. Some owners of NBA clubs were already invested in popular esports such as Overwatch and League of Legends, and had seen their arenas host well-attended competitions, even before the league created the first official esports league operated by a U.S. professional sports league. Now that makes sense, because I was wondering, this is kind of random. I'm thinking of Houston, because Houston, I was thinking would have a team, but then I realized Houston really doesn't need to have basketball E-League because they have Overwatch. The opening day of the tip-off tournament had some excitement, highlighted by 2 40-point performances by Cav Legion GC's Brandon Caicedo, who plays under the handle Hood. The players are playing as themselves, not the guys on the NBA's Cavaliers. But the league was already encouraged by the response even before the games begin. This article is quite detailed as far as the draft, as far as the league, what to expect. All of that's fine. Like I said, this is a story I would definitely recommend reading, because the only reason I'm not reading it to you, because if I read it, we'll literally be here I would be here for like another 30 minutes. Well, not 30 minutes, but it would be quite a bit of information to share. So to give a condensed story of what the article can share and what I was able to gather from watching the tip-off. So what they did was a NBA 2K League tip-off tournament. All 17 teams played. There were 4 divisions. I want to make sure I get this right. Yes, there were 4 divisions of 4 groups. Each groups A, B, and C all had 4 teams, while Group D had 5. Group D was known as the deaf group, or the group of deaf. And in any sport, this is a sport thing, this is esports, this is just general know-how. Anytime you do groups, there's always a group that has 2, if not 3 teams that are good. We learned that in Group D when everything was said and done. When the series were ended for Group D, 3 teams were 3-1, but only 2 teams could make it. And the team that didn't make it was likely a team that could have made it, but it was just based on the groupings and the amount of teams that would be available to go into the actual tournament. So in each group, the 2 best records go on to play in the actual playoffs for the $100,000 pot, to kind of get the tip off, get everybody kind of get your feet wet, kind of get the game flow, chemistry, things of that sort. And then in a couple of weeks, the actual season of NBA 2K League starts. So that's kind of the synopsis of what you get. Now to give you kind of if you didn't watch it and you want to understand if you should or shouldn't watch it. If you do or don't understand basketball, that's okay. It's helpful because the commentators mainly do their best in analyzing and explaining the game and explaining who does what. To advance things a little bit on the description for those who do play the game, when they were initially given the information, you kind of learned who was who, but they didn't present archetypes as far as like what type of, if a player was a point guard, what type of point guard was he? If he was a shooter, was he a slasher? Was he just a shoot, like sit at a 3-point line chilling? When he was a big man, was he a spread the floor big man, or was he you on the block and you just dunking all day? So all of that was learned as games progressed. There was a very balanced amount of trash talking, which I think is good. And I only say balanced because it was some teams just didn't have that. Some teams were very focused on just playing the game. And then there were a lot of teams who played that really made it clear that, look, we here to win, and we will show you why we're going to win, and we will do what we do. I looked at the match. Now, like I said, I quoted matches as I could. Matches are currently on. They started today at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So if you are twitch.tv/NBA 2K League, you can go and catch matches on there now and kind of catch up. But I feel like this is going to be a promising series. I like the form, I guess, and that's what I'm giving. This is what I'm getting to. The format and how the arena is set up for them to play. I love that because it's a round table, and you have the 2K League, the 2K League logo in the middle. One team is on the left, one team is on the right. You got to see the new courts that were created for the teams. I don't understand it, but I guess it's me watching kind of with a analytical eye. When they would play games, if you were playing like first half, second half, you stayed on the same court for all 4 quarters. It wasn't like, okay, it's halftime, let's switch sides. They just played regular, like whatever court you're on that court the rest of the game. Or you shooting at that court the rest of the game. You did get to see all of the arenas, which I think was good. I'm trying to think what other tidbits stood out for me. The apparel is very interesting. So my roommate and I, and just people who know me, we make a mockery of the esports tradition. As far as most players who play esports wear these little shirts that are pretty small. And I was telling her, and I'm telling anyone who watches, if you're an esports gamer, watcher, whatever, you'll look at this and be kind of surprised because you're like, well, why are they wearing these shirts? And I'm like, you're not gonna put these guys in these little shirts. You can't do it. No, don't even try. Most of them are guys who chill and play 2K, and they set it, but the format for it is set up actually not pretty good. And I say that to say that I'm sharing that to say this: the designs, all the designs look consistent, which is fine. A lot of people gave a lot of grief about the Celtics because it wasn't the rich culture of the Celtics, and it's like, but it's esports, so you don't want it to be a mimic of the NBA team. You want it to be its own entity in a sense that's part of the NBA professional team. But all the courts look great. The players are donned out in, like, the players who are playing the actual game themselves, like, they're in merchandise. A lot of them wear like the snapbacks and the fitteds and stuff like that. Love it. Last thing, and then I'm gonna leave this alone, and I'll get into the ass of the week related to the NBA, and then another fun story. But how can I put this? The sponsorships. Wow. I'm giving claps. Like I'm in my non-normal spot, but I would definitely do an applause for that. The arenas, not the arena, the sponsorships. I'm gonna focus. I'm gonna get this together, y'all. Bear with me. The sponsorships for 2K are phenomenal. Each team has their own sponsor. That's fine. That's expected. I could see them eventually going the WNBA route as far as having players wear their uniform and then have like the logo and all that. Fine, whatever. Don't care. But Intel, Alienware, like the halftime. They called it like the Alienware halftime report. HyperX is on board. If getting HyperX for headsets that's huge. What's the other brand? They had the Alienware monitors. Scuff Gaming. Scuff Gaming, basically, anyone who plays Call of Duty knows about Scuff. But those who do not know, Scuff basically makes customized. Some people consider them as modded controllers, but they make custom controllers that you can kind of have your triggers when you're playing games. You don't have to utilize your X, Y, A, B, or your triangle, square, circle, X on your PlayStation. You don't have to utilize those buttons strictly. There are buttons or paddles that are on the back that you can set to do different things. Like your joystick, most of that's going to stay the same. You're not messing with that. But a lot of them get them customized as far as like if you want your right movement button to be a little higher, if you want your left to be lower, things of that nature. Like those little things like make differences that people sometimes don't understand. So there's that. So I share all of that just to say 2K League is on the right path. It's not, I don't want it to be perfect the first year. And anyone who's watching it with the intent of looking for perfection, don't watch it, because it's going through its growth. It's going through its growth spurts, and it's going through its transition, which I love. Tying into how the season will go, like I said, it's early. Teams were eliminated from getting the $100,000 pot, but they will still be available to play in the actual season, which, like I said, was a few weeks away. All right. Our first Ask of the Week. I'm not sure if this can go to Drake or if this goes to the NBA. So I'm going to read the article and then we'll break it down. The NBA has asked the Toronto Raptors to tell rapper Drake to avoid a repeat of his verbal exchanges with Cleveland's Kendrick Perkins during Game 1 of Toronto's second round series against the Cavs. Number one, Kendrick Perkins isn't even playing in the game, so he's on the sideline. He's not dressed to play. Just want to add that. Drake, who has been Toronto's global ambassador since 2013, OVO, God's plan, occasionally sits in a courtside seat adjacent to the Toronto's bench and trades barbs with visiting players. Perkins took exception to Drake's comments as the teams were leaving the court at the end of the first half Tuesday. The pair traded angry words again following Cleveland's overtime win. According to the NBA Fan Code of Conduct, the league is committed to creating a safe, comfortable, and enjoyable sport and entertainment experience. The Raptors hosted Game 2 on Thursday. A day earlier, Toronto coach Dwayne Casey said he had no issues with Drake's antics, saying he wished all Raptors fans had the same passion as the three-time Grammy winner. So this generates a interesting conversation. And we've kind of gone over, the podcast has not gone over this, but this is something that is noticed and observed with sports and with events. And this has been seen in the playoffs, actually. Russell Westbrook in a couple of games has gotten frustrated when leaving the court based on fans either recording him or making comments. I won't say it's a gray area, but it's a fine line, because you have to remember, if you say anything, you're making yourself vulnerable to what happens. Like, you, as a player, how can I put this? As a player, you have to learn to focus on the game, but it's also a challenge to not take what fans say personal, especially if it's something that's said that could rub you the wrong way. A couple of years ago, the Cavs were playing against a team. It might have been Golden State, I don't remember. LeBron was walking off the court, and this woman is just randomly shouts out, "You pussy ass bitch." I'm gonna edit. Explicit content, you already know. "You pussy ass bitch." This is exactly what she said. And LeBron kind of turned around and looked, see who it was. And so this guy, well, before that, the security guard is like, hey, watch your mouth. He looks, and you see her, like, they get the camera to go back towards her, and she was like, I can't really hear anything you saying. And it wasn't even just based on the fact that she couldn't hear him. She was drunk. So it's like, you have those factors come into play. Now, I'm giving that example to kind of tie to Drake. Drake is a known figure for sports and for music. 9 times out of 10, I would not be surprised if he's asked to be a host again for the NBA award show. If he does, he does. If he doesn't, whatever. Who cares? Stating all that to just state and share, you, as a fan, you have your right. As a player, you have to know your resistance. If it's not, unless it's something said directly to, unless Drake said something directly to Kendrick Perkins, bruh, just let him be Drake. Drake is chilling at the game. He acting crazy. We done seen players like what? You've seen, if you go to Lakers game, you have every celebrity sideline. If Jack Nicklaus wants to yell at LeBron, you think LeBron really is paying him any attention? Yeah, LeBron gets, I feel like players get taunted all. That's the game. And his passion is like, you thinking Kendrick don't even know who somebody in the crowd could say something random. Of course, then we tie into the malice at the palace, which we're not going to do. But I'm just bringing it up to bring this all into perspective. Fans are going to talk because it's Drake talking. That just doesn't, Drake talking. It doesn't make sense because let's face it and let's think about it. Just I'm gonna talk to y'all. I'm gonna come in there with this one. Think if it was Game 3 and Usher, who I would say is the owner or part owner with the Cavs, is at his sideline, and he's talking trash to DeMar DeRozan. What makes his approach or what makes what he's doing any different than what Drake's doing? Like, it's part of the game. It's part of the sport. If you don't want these players to have these, or you don't want these fans to have these seats, or you don't want it to be this type of interaction, set it up like college basketball. Sit them on that lower bench and then let them not be talked to and they can go on about their business. Instead of it having me and they got to come on the court and all that. Like, it's not that big of a deal. If you don't want him to say anything to players, then don't let, like, I think what makes it a random spinoff is Kendrick Perkins has not played a game for the Cavs yet. I want that to really stand out if anyone's listening. If anybody is hearing me, the sound of my voice, just understand he's not playing no games right now. And in all fairness, like, what you also had to remember, from the marketing and realistic standpoint, Drake and LeBron are cool. Like, remember that. Like, let's keep that in mind, y'all. Like, just think about it. Final story. I don't even know where to begin with this story. New York. Popeyes. I almost wanted to sing the kitchen. I was about to sing the stir fry part where they start talking about Popeyes, and then I thought about it. It's not going to work for this part. But New York police officers are looking for a woman who went clean off and smashed a window with a chair at a Popeyes because she found out her fast food meal did not come with a soft drink. It was recorded on video. The video is on the link that I shared. The woman went to a Staten Island Popeyes to order the $4 Wicked Good deal. The meal includes Wicked chicken strips, a side, and a buttermilk biscuit and dipping sauce. The employee told the staff members tried to explain that the meal did not come with a drink and suggested that she was confusing the Popeyes deal with similar deals that do come with a drink. She went off. They say the woman began harassing staff, grabbed a sign and threw it. She grabbed a chair and used it to smash the front window. Before fleeing, she made obscene gestures at the staff. she's not. And then, hopefully they find her. The employee told WNBC they are keeping the employee involved anonymous. I don't want her in this store. I don't think anybody wants her in their store. A couple of things, because this one is going to be fun. Whether it came with a drink or not, acting the way she did is not going to get you to drink. You have no drink, and now they have you as possibly not a warrant, but they're trying to arrest, they're looking to arrest you because you vandalized or damaged personal property, whatever. All of that being said, there was a much easier way that this could have been resolved, and I'm just amazed that it didn't even come into the fruition to be thought of with all that's going on. Just ask for a drink or don't order that meal. Because I would recall in most instances, if you're in a store and you buy like certain items, or even if you're in a drive-thru, they put the visuals for a reason to tell you, hey, if you do get this, it comes with a drink. If you don't get this, then it's just a sandwich, or it's just the food or the item. I don't see what made this any different. I really don't. And this story isn't in this other story that I'm going to share is not in the show notes, but it is a story that happened because I am working in Northern Virginia. And I'm going to talk about that next week. I won't talk about it now because I want to get a week under my belt and I'll get into all that. But yeah, because fair warning, there will be a transition in the podcast and we'll talk about that too. But anyway, while I was doing my work and kind of getting things prepared, I was watching TV and they had a story of a woman who is called a coon at a restaurant. I'm not going to say the restaurant's name. I'm not even going to say the location because no point. This is kind of like a teaser, but it did happen in Northern Virginia. That I will say. And the lady put in her order. She confirmed the order. Okay, cool, no problem, got you. Asked, can I have a name for the order? The person gave her name. The representative asked them to repeat it or repeat, spelling it. Spell the name out. I don't care how bad your English is. I don't care how much you do or don't comprende, or whatever English, however you want to pin it, coin it. I'm not stereotyping. I'm not prototyping. I'm not being petty. I'm being very honest in what I'm about to say. If a person's name doesn't even start with that letter, why of all terms would you put coon on a receipt? Because then this particular venue who is trying to ask or look for this person is yelling out coon instead of the person's name. Because in most cases, like when you go to a lot of places to get food, it's easier to just have a name with the order. And knowing names is not hard. Like it's almost like going to Starbucks. Like I'm not gonna lie. I've found myself having fun with this sometimes where I will make my name something that I know is not even close to my name. Like I may call it Unicorn. I may call it BT. I may call it B Weezy. Brian. I've put everything. Barney. It's all having fun. But anywho, if you give a name, that should be the name that should go on the receipt, not coon. So that was just a bad move in so many words, literally. So I'm leaving y'all today with, I'm leaving y'all with this, and then I'll go ahead and do the closeout shots. Know your worth. Never let anyone claim that they have control over your worth, first and foremost. Most importantly, if you're going to do something stupid, think it through before you do it. I'll put it like that. Going back to the Popeyes lady. Going back to the representative who's working at the store. Going back to the NBA who wants to it's like they want to find the Raptors for Drake's comments. Is Drake going to be at Game 3? You bet he is. Are you going to find him because he's a devoted fan and he's sitting front row? He's OVO. But in all fairness, like, just it's an easier way to handle it without it getting to the point that they're carrying it to, and it's not that serious. Just how I'm looking at it. But that's the simplest way, the most condensed way of putting it. As I always share, thank y'all. Well, first and foremost, thank y'all for tuning in. I do appreciate the listens, the support, the subscribes, the feedback. Someone gave me some input that really made me feel good. They were listening to some of the podcasts that I did. One of them was related to local and Black-owned businesses. Unsought. If you are not subscribed to them already, check out Unsought Podcast. They're doing big things. They're up and coming podcasts. They just got the iTunes flow. You know, anytime somebody do the iTunes thing, I'm all for it. Like, yes, let's go. iTunes, we in there. So I'm always gonna get props for that. But podcasts are uploaded to Spreaker.com. We do record each week. You should be hearing our original intro and outro. I want to make sure I don't do the podcast every day in April, because if I do, it'll really sound bad. But these episodes are uploaded to Spreaker. The microphone that you're hearing me on is the Blue Yeti microphone. No, it's the Blue Yeti. This has been like the fun part of the show, doing it. Well, not the show, but the fun part of podcasting now. Because when I had my first mic, I recorded and I had fun. But now I really have fun. And there's no exception or no reason not to. But continue to keep tuning in. We will be getting some more shows. I have a possible special guest coming soon. Just a matter of sitting down and getting that open mic discussion going, because I feel like it's going to happen, and I just hope I don't get put off by it, off Spreaker. But anywho, y'all be good, be safe, stay hydrated in this weather. If it's getting too hot, get a bottle of water like I just did. And until next time, y'all take it easy. The Pass signing out. Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to get any information specifically based on the shows, you can go to Spreaker.com/BriTapePodcast or go to www.passpodcast.com. On both of those options, you do have the information related to what topics were talked about, the timestamps for the episode, as well as the specific links related to that specific story. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, The Pass signing out. でもそんなんじゃダメ、もうそんなんじゃほら心は進化するよもっともっと